Come on, let's put our hands together for Pastor Steve and Pastor Emmanuel. Thank you so much, men, for being here. We are going to have a great time talking to some men. Yeah? The Bible says in Proverbs 27 verse 17, as iron sharpens iron, what happens? One man sharpens the countenance of his friend, all right? So this morning, I'm very privileged to be talking to two young men who are incredible and doing incredible things in business and in ministry. So I'm going to invite them right now. First of all, I will invite Pastor Ivan Muhumuza. Let's give him some love as he comes. Ow. And together with Pastor Ivan, put your hands together for Pastor Chris Kaweesa. Hey! All right, please, you may have your seats. Gentlemen, please. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for agreeing to share your stories with us. You have incredible stories, but I'm going to ask that you start by just introducing yourselves in your capacities so that the men here can get to know who you are. We'll start with Pastor Blesso.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pastor Jeremy. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. My name is Ivan Muhumuza Amoti Blessed. You can call me Papa Blesso. I am a believer in Jesus. I am a husband of one awesome wife called Precious Barbara Muhumuza. We have two children. One is EJ. The other one is coming up anytime now. Yeah. I pastor at Worship Harvest Mackay and work with Worship Harvest Ministries as the youth pastor across the movement. And I also coach with Straightforward Financial Growth and do a few other things. Yeah, so that's me.
Wow, let's give it up for Papa Bless. So, Pastor Chris, I hope we have enough time for your interview, for your welcome, for your... Go ahead.
No, we do. Good morning, men. A pleasure, a very, very big pleasure to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Chris Kaweesa. I am a father, a husband, first of all, to one wife, Jean Kaweesa. Together we have 5 children. Calm down.
How many on the way?
No. We have 5 children. I'm also a pastor in Worship Harvest, as a business pastor for Worship Harvest, but also a zonal pastor in Worship Harvest Gayaza. And together with my wife, we lead the global network of Worship Harvest. I'm also a businessman. I run 4 businesses actively and invested in about 7 businesses.
Okay. All right. So, Papa Blesso.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for agreeing to share with us your story. You have an interesting story. But I'm going to ask you just to tell us a little bit about your life, and then I'll interrupt you with a few questions here as we go along.
All right. So I was born, raised in Ginger. I'm the firstborn of 7 children. From childhood, I was an ambitious young man. And through primary school, I went to Victoria Nile Primary School. I was always sort of like the best in class. Yeah. And so in my primary 7, my dream was to get 4 aggregates. That was my goal. And I didn't get the 4 aggregates, and so I considered myself a failure. Wow. I got 6 aggregates. So because I wanted to be the best in the district. I wanted to also carry around a newspaper like someone I know whose name I won't mention. Anyway, so so the best in the district got 5 aggregates, somewhere around the 6th. I got 6 aggregates. And because I didn't get my first choice school, which was Namilyango then, I got my second choice school, which turned out to be a blessing, Kira College Butiki, where I was for 6 years. And when I went to Kira College Butiki, I sort of like resigned at life because I thought, in my mind, I thought I had failed, okay? Because all my friends, the ones that we used to compete with, my peers went to Subi, Budo, and all those cool schools. And me, I was in a cooler school, Kira College Butiki. So because I thought I had failed, I resigned at life in my senior 1 and senior 2, and I joined a group of people I considered cool, okay? They were the cool guys at school, in the latter classes, Form 5, Form 6, Form 4. And so together we sort of like had a gang of boys. And so I started learning some of the things that they did, okay? So I started, I was introduced to pornography. I started watching porn.
What class were you at the time?
I was in senior 1. 13 years old. So I started watching pornography, and you see, the first time I watched it, it was like, I was shocked. My system was shocked, okay? What a shock. But, what a shock indeed. But with time, it sort of like became normal. It became the life, okay? Because those were the cool people at school, and I wanted to look cool. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to feel accepted somewhere in society, okay? So I started watching porn, and I graduated from watching it to, supplying it, okay? Yeah, so there was quick graduation, quickly.
So you had a porn business.
Yeah, you can say I had a porn business.
You put your business skills to the wrong...
Yes.
Wow. So were you supplying on DVD?
DVD, yes, DVD and magazines. And at about that time, a certain newspaper had just come out, and it was very gross. So the RP newspaper. So we used to pick out certain sections of that paper and smuggle them into school, and would have books. So they'll find you in prep thinking you're reading a book, and yet, in that book there are papers. You're reading certain things that are not chemistry or whatever. So that was my life up to until senior 2. In my senior 2, around the second term, I started feeling an emptiness on the inside. The thing I thought was going to give me significance and acceptance and was going to make me feel more of a man because I was in a single school, okay? And I didn't feel, most of us didn't feel like men if you are not watching some of those things, if you didn't have a babe around, it just didn't feel right. So I thought that would give me acceptance and love, but it did not. So I started feeling very empty on the inside. And I didn't know where to run to. I couldn't get a solution from my friends, from my what, and so I decided to, I'm just cutting the story short, I decided to commit suicide.
Wait a minute. Commit suicide?
Yes.
What was going to happen to your business?
Well, I think I was a good man. I had discipled many people in that business. Yeah. I had actually recruited people into it. Yeah, quite a number of people, because I'm sort of like an extreme person. When I get into something, I am in it. Yeah, so, and I want everyone to get into the thing. Yeah, so I had gotten some of my friends into it, and so we used to do that thing together. But I felt empty. I couldn't find solutions from my friends. I was failing in class. At home, I was naughty. On the village, people had warned their daughters against hanging out with me. I was that person that no one wants to associate with. And my parents didn't know what was going on. My friends didn't know what was going on the inside. And so I decided to commit suicide. There was a big tree below our grey house where the dormitory I used to live, and next to the jungle. And yeah, I wanted to use a rope to
So the
cross
school,
the
the
bridge.
school is on a hill,
Yes.
surrounded by a forest.
Yes.
So your plan was to go into one of the forests and
Yes.
hang yourself on one of the trees.
Yeah, at night after prep, because no one would be walking there at that time to rescue me. So that was my plan, because I thought when I do that, I will escape all the suffering that is on earth. There's a song that across the bridge there is no more sorrow, across the bridge there is no more pain. The sun will shine across the river and you'll never be unhappy again. So I decided to do that. But that night, after prep, just as I was stepping out of senior 2G, a gentleman called Remus Mark came and walked up to me and started preaching the gospel to me.
Wow.
Started telling me about Jesus. Started telling me, Ivan, you need to consider giving your life to Jesus. I don't know how he timed, I just don't know. But he came at that time when I was stepping out of prep. And so he talked to me for about 15 minutes. And after, I decided to give my life to Jesus. He led me through a prayer in a fellowship next to Agri House. And that's how I am here today.
Come on, just clap those hands to Jesus. Hey! That's why you need to go for evangelism. Okay, great. Pastor Chris, we shall come back to Papa Blesso. Tell us about your story.
Raised in Budo, stable family. I have now 5 siblings. Then there were 6 in the family. I was the only boy, or I'm the only boy. I think I had a good example. My parents, my family was stable, went to fairly good schools, and I think the journey of my growing up really is about school, because that's where I learned most of my stuff from. I went into boarding school in primary 1. And that was in Kabojam, the original Kabojam, Mugwanya Preparatory School. Not this one. So my story, I think, began there because I hadn't right there. Day 1, I think I was 5 years old, P1, posho and beans, and that was it. You can't turn back. So I ran that life for 7 years in primary. Holidays were short. My parents were busy. So I didn't get a lot to connect with my parents. I went to secondary school in about S3. So I went to SMAC in my secondary school. And the environment, at that time, in S3, my father lost his job. So at that time, in those high-end schools, people come with posh cars, nice sneakers, So in that stage, I started to seek for acceptance, wanting to make friends. So I went into alcohol and smoking in S3. And that went throughout my life up to, I think, 2007-8. I was smoking and I was drinking. And that season of my life for me was, like, if I'm talking about my life, it is the time I was in my father's house, not seeing him, but I know he loved me because he did everything to make sure I go to school. And then that's when I left my father's house, and that's when my life really began. Because right there, you're looking for money, you want acceptance, there are all these things around you, and then you need to start a life. For me, those are the 2 seasons of my life before 2009 when I gave my life to Christ through a friend of mine. So we were organizing this road trip to South Africa. But planned lots of people to drive down for the World Cup in 2010. And one of my friends who was organizing got an accident in early 2009. So one of my friends was born again. He had invited us to church and we had refused. So the second one got an accident, and that caused us to go to fellowship. So we went to their fellowship, we went to Prayer Mountain for an overnight. That's when I gave my life to Christ. Yeah. And for me, right there, my life changed. So from the time from my father's house to when I was living alone, it was a series of ups and downs, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we see two men who are dealing with an identity crisis. Yeah? He wants to be cool and you want to be accepted. And you find yourself dealing with pornography, and you find yourself dealing with smoking and alcohol. And then somewhere along the way, Jesus just snatches you out of that, and now you're born again. So tell us, what happened after that?
So when I got born again, in my senior two, like I told you, I'm sort of like an extreme person. When I get into something, I'm in it. I'm not halfway in it. And so I started seeking God, praying and doing many things. My academics got back on track. Up to until senior 2, I had wanted to become a doctor. Up to until senior 4, actually. I wanted to become a doctor because that felt like the coolest profession out there. Everyone wanted to become a doctor or a pilot or something like that. In my senior 4, I passed biology, but out of a struggle. Like it didn't come easy. And so I decided to drop biology. I decided to become an engineer, so I did PCMTD. So I did Form 5, Form 6. So this is my career side of life. It's a ministry side of life. Should I talk about it now? Will you talk about it later? I don't know. But so I decided to pursue engineering. In my Form 6, I got 21 aggregates. I wanted to do civil engineering because I'm passionate about structures, buildings, and people. But because of the points I got, I could not get into campus to do civil engineering on merit, on government. And my parents could not afford to take me on private sponsorship. So I decided to take the course I was given on government, which was industrial engineering. It is more mechanical oriented, mechanical, electrical. And so I did industrial engineering at campus. I was in Chambogo for 4 years. And about my 4th year, about my 3rd year really, I quit on ministry. Yeah. Now that is a
wow.
That is another, because I had started to do sort of like ministry, lead the scripture union in school, started a fellowship when I was in high school at the church where I was in Jinja in Injeru. Started a fellowship for youth, got to campus, led the first year's fellowship. MDD was the chairperson, Christian Union on campus. So up to until that time, I was really, really serving God. But in my 3rd year, I just felt like, yeah, I'm done. I'm tired. I remember telling God, I have served you enough, God. I think I've given you my best. This is it. Please allow me to be like other people, okay? Yeah. Let me go and start, I don't know, work somewhere, come with my family to church, sit somewhere, then after church, get into the car, go back home. Like, that's what I thought was going to be the rest of my life, okay? Do the engineering job and then do that. So in my 3rd year, for about 8 months or 9 months, I never went for any fellowship. I never did any of those things that I used to do. And so in my 3rd year, in my 4th year, I started working. Actually, in my 3rd year, I started working with high-tech cable industries in SETA as a maintenance engineer. After about 6 months, I got bored. I left. I started working with Uganda Industrial Research Institute, still as a maintenance engineer around the different mock plants that are in that place. And it was during that time that I just felt like that's not my life. I'm not very passionate about machines, and I never saw my life in machines from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I didn't see my life turning out that way. So somewhere on the inside, I always had the call of God on my life. And so in my 4th year, that is when I made the decision. I said, you know what? If this is what I feel God is calling me to do, to be in ministry, then I'm not going to fast, I don't know, go do what, do that other thing, what. No, I'm going to commit to it right from campus. Okay. And so that's when I made the decision not to practice industrial engineering. And I decided to start, I was in my 4th year, started volunteering with an organization called Fellowship of Christian Unions Uganda that had fellowships in the different universities. And so I used to volunteer there, and then that's about that time I joined Worship Harvest. Katikati got here, so that's how I start my journey on ministry. Yeah. Yeah, that's the next phase of my life.
Wow. So you made a decision. You made a decision early enough and chose your path as the ministry path.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that addiction that you had?
So when I got born again, I thought it was going to just disappear because, those things, took my sins, bitchy, but but for some reason, the thing kept coming, and I still found myself sneaking into the room somehow, even when I was born again. And so I lived sort of like a double life. So I was in fellowship, but I was still dealing with this thing called the pornography addiction. And
you were the papa of the fellowship?
No, at that time, I wasn't yet the papa. But I had joined the worship team. So what used to happen, I would get onto the worship team. I joined the worship team because they were going to a girls' school. And the only escape out of the boys' school, if you were in a single school and you're born again at that time, was if you were in the Scripture Union choir. So that's how I stumbled into leading worship. It's not that I had a voice, just... So I joined the worship team, but you're there worshiping, singing songs, you are holy, Lord, you are worthy, or what? But in your mind, you have all these interesting images. And I tried to pray, I tried to do many things, but it just seemed not to go. But the thing that happened, I can't point to the day, but I went on a journey where I intensively read the Word of God. I just started reading the Word of God. I'd never understood everything I read, but I remember I'd get my Good News Bible with its stick men and just read book after book after book after book. I read it for like a year. And by the end of the year, by the end of my Form 4, the images were no more in my head. And I no longer had the urge to do the thing. So that's how it ended. I can't point to a day, but I remember at the end of that year, by the time I finished my exams, it occurred to me that, wait, bless, so you no longer have the desire to watch porn, you no longer have those images, like all that stuff just sort of like left. So that's how the addiction went.
Amen.
Yeah.
Wow. Pastor Chris, talk to us. Business, meeting your wife, tell us what happened.
I met Jean in, I think 2006. We loved each other. I mean, we were an example. So we loved each other. We were very good friends. So a season came when we actually wanted to get married. And she was part of my partying life. We used to go out together with all our friends and have fun. So a time came when we loved each other. We started living together before we got married. And the reason why we lived together before we got married is because we didn't have money to make a wedding. Because we were young, we had just left work. So what we did, we went to the DC and got married. Register of marriages, and we got married. Me, Jean and I, and two friends of ours, Wilson and Khan. And we went to Garden City and cut pizza as our cake. I'll look for those photos. So we cut cake and life moved on.
You cut pizza.
We cut cake, yeah. So that's my marriage journey. So we started living together. We gave birth to Amber, our firstborn, and later when we got born again, we came to church and got married properly after getting the revelation. My business journey started. I think I've always wanted to do business. I did my first business in S3, and I was a cameraman.
Hopefully, you weren't selling what you were selling.
No.
Oh, you were the one taking the pictures. Okay, let's go.
Pastor Jeremy, mercy. So, in S3, we had this cameraman at school who used to come on the weekends in SMAC. But during the week, there was no one taking photos. So, I saved some, come and bought a camera. It was 30K. I still remember how it smelled when I opened it. And I started doing some business at school. So that's a journey of its own. I lost my first 2 films because I didn't know how to, and yet people had paid me. So I ran that business until my camera was stolen in S5. So that was my business. That's where my business started. I got a job. So it's tied into my education. I did fairly well in school, but I got distracted around S3 and S4. Maybe because of the business and smoking and alcohol. Yeah. And I didn't do well. So I went to Caltech for my S5 and S6. And Caltech was a boarding school, so I was in a hostel. So the party continued in a way. So I flunked my S6 and went to Uganda Technical College, Masaka, where I did my diploma in electrical engineering. So when I came back in between my S6 vac, I was a silent DJ at Radio Sanyu. I was doing the recording and filling in gaps where the DJs hadn't come. So when I got back after my diploma, my auntie gave me a job at an internet cafe in Tinder. And there I started to experience business because I was running it, I was doing the systems administration, and interacted with lots of people. I got inspired to do business because of the people I was engaging in. I used to send for people emails, do research, and all that. So I quit that job and then started an IT company. It was called Chain Technologies. I had a laptop. A friend of mine, Jimmy Byemanzi, gave me a laptop to start my business. What I did, at that time, many people want tech survey. So many people in government and business people had to learn computer, but they couldn't do it in public spaces. They were more or less not there. So I spent my evenings going to people's homes to teach them DOS, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Wow. Yeah. So in that time, my auntie still, Jennifer, who's also my mentor, called me for an opportunity to work with a cleaning company, which was a South African cleaning company that they had set up. They had set up office here. I told her, look, I am an IT guy. At that time, I was also studying IT at Chambogo. So there's no I'm going to go and do cleaning. So he convinced me until I went for an interview, and the guy told me, look, we're going to take you to train in South Africa. I was like, hey, I will come. So I passed the interview, and I went and trained, and then came and ran that company called Mr. Clean. So we're doing cleaning services and pest control. So, but I never settled there. So I registered my first business officially in 2004, that's Dagan Dragon. And I was doing all sorts of things. I started so many businesses and they failed in that season, So my business journey started there. I started doing so many things until 8 years later I decided to quit, to purely come to start Dagan Dragon. At that time, my business journey is related to my salvation journey. Because I had struggled to do business as I was being employed, but when I gave my life to Christ in 2009, I joined Worship Harvest in 2010, and that's when I made a decision to quit. And that's a story which I shared with you, is that the day I handed in my resignation is the day I saw a tender, which I submitted, and on the 1st of January 2011, I had a contract which was paying me a lot more than I was earning in my job. So I feel like that was very related.
Very prophetic.
Yeah. On the other hand, my ministry journey, I started serving God, I think, in SMAC as well. There was a club called St. Peter the Apostle. I remember about 5 years ago that I was the chairman of that club for a whole year. Yeah. So I was involved. First of all, I was born in a very Catholic family. We said the rosary, we prayed. I mean, it was really, really, we're doing it very well as Catholics. And all the schools I went to were Catholic schools. So I think that's where my journey started. But I had a heart of, loving people and serving people. So I started so many initiatives, especially when I started work. We started Cancer Foundation. We used to go to the Cancer Institute and give food every Friday for like 3 years. So we did so many things because there was a yearning for God. I used to go to Christ the King either in the morning or at lunchtime to pray. So every day. But I never got, I never got filled. So I think that I was serving God in a way until that story when we went to do the road trip and I gave my life to Christ. And then I started seeing God in a different way, getting people to talk to and reading the Bible. And that's how my ministry journey really started.
Wow, let's give it up for Pastor Chris. So Proverbs chapter 20, verse 6 says, I'm going to read it. It says, most men will proclaim each his own goodness, but who can find a faithful man? Who can find? Who can find a faithful man? Pastor Blesso, I know you're a married man. How have you managed to remain faithful to Pastor Bobby?
So, I'm going to answer it twofold. I'll first give the answer, then I'll explain.
You can explain.
I can explain. There are two reasons. One, the grace of God. Two, a spiritual family where I have cover and I am accountable. Why do I say the grace of God? Yes, I got married. I got married young. I got married the year after I left campus. And even after, before I got married, one of the things that I knew is that I know God wanted us to keep pure until we get married. Okay? But the desires, the feelings, were not cooperating with...
The flesh had the other agenda of secondary school.
Different agenda altogether. And I remember through that time, I really struggled. I really wanted to have sex. But I knew I am a minister, I'm in worship harvest, what will I tell God? What will I tell my pastors? And so at times when the feelings would become too much, I would just, there's a time I remember I came to Apostle. There was still a bathroom somewhere around here before this auditorium was there, and met Apostle there, and I told him, Apostle, man, this thing, Chichi, what do I do? The desire is too much. What can I do? He burst out laughing so hard.
Great answer. Great response.
So he laughed so hard. Then after he told me, you will handle, man. Yeah.
Come on, touch your neighbor and tell them you will handle. Tell the other one who's not looking at you.
So he just told me, you will handle. I'm like, okay, I just told me you will handle. But when are you getting married? I told him, So we get married. Thankfully, we stayed through until marriage. And so when we get married, I thought that when you get married, the desire goes, okay? Yeah. But man, the desire still came, okay? What a shock. And for other people, not my, of course, the desire to have sex. With at times other people, because I would still be attracted to other beautiful girls out there.
But you were having it, weren't you?
Yes, I was having sex, but the desire was still there. And so I was a bit confused. Yeah. So I would pray, do things. It's... Man, that desire. Yeah. So it's like, it just kept coming. And of course, there are many other beautiful girls. So I later on learned, God taught me that sexual feeling and desire is a gift from Him. Okay? It's not a bad thing. What I do with it, though, is my responsibility. Okay? That God has given me the responsibility to tame that thing. Yeah. Okay? And of course, I don't have the power to do it. That's why I said the grace of God. Because when I look back at this whole journey, even when I was married, I am sure it's the grace of God that has kept me through it to stay faithful. But then two, I'm in a family, okay? From the time I joined Worship Harvest and I was asked, are you dating? I said, yes. Who is the babe? This is the babe. As in, I've had cover of men. Okay? Yeah. The whole time I'm in a family, there is accountability. When things get tough, there are people I talk to. Okay, I have men I just call my pastors, Apostle, Pastor Emma. At times I'll just call Pastor Paul, who is my best man. Yeah. I tell him, man, Paul, there is this babe. At times, there's a gentleman called Brian Daniels, Mwesigo, who introduced me to Worship Harvest. He's in Abuja now. I just call them. I'm like, yo, there is this thing. And so we just meet, talk, pray, and then the thing somehow just dies out. So the grace of God and being in a spiritual family where I have cover and I am accountable is what has kept me that way.
Pastor Chris, Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. You're such a businessman, serial entrepreneur. Tell us about your journey towards inheritance, leaving something for your children, savings, business growth.
Thanks, Pastor Jeremy. First of all, I think that journey has just begun. Why? Because I'm unlearning a lot of things as a business person, as an entrepreneur. I'm unlearning a lot of things, especially because of the Worship Harvest space, and thanks, Apostle Mose. Because, like I would chatted earlier, you grow up being mentored by your fellow friends. As men, I don't know. Some of you are lucky to have grown up with people who are mentoring you, who are better than you or who are in the right spaces. But you grew up learning from each other, right from sex, business, you ask your friend. They are not there are spaces you learn from.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm unlearning a lot of things right now. But that journey for me, I like to share it with the eyes of the 5 capitals. Because most of the time we focus on wealth creation and then we forget everything else. We forget God completely, and that's a common thing with business people. You forget your family, relationships and friends. And then you don't take care of yourselves, and then not learning enough relations. So I want to look at it in that space. That if you dig deep and search your God, find your partner, have a good relationship with them, get yourself into better relationships that are helping you, that journey will be a better journey. So right now we are unlearning a lot of things. We are learning to save every week. We are learning to invest in different things. Personally, I learned to invest in businesses. So I'm learning to invest in assets now.
Yeah.
So that's a foundation that I'm struggling with. So so it's that journey where I'm just beginning. But get yourself in a space where someone's better than you, someone can hold your hand and take you through, and then be deliberate about what you're doing. Learn about money, learn about wealth, because looking at wealth as money alone is not the right thing.
Yeah.
But then looking at it right from God to relationships, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, if you don't have these things, you won't enjoy your money. But also it's difficult to do that when you don't have these 4 things. That's God, relationships, health, and then knowledge.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm sure there are some ladies online. So ladies online and gentlemen in the room, put your hands together for Papa Blesso and Pastor Chris for sharing their stories with us.